Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. We have a huge docket for you, so let's get right to it. First, Chandler Halderson. He doesn't want to attend his own sentencing. Boy, if I was the judge, I'd have something to say about that. So apparently the Museum of Modern Art's alleged stabber was not in Central America like he had stated, because he was arrested in the United States. We have an update on the New York and D.C. serial killer. Jussie Smollett, he wants to go home. Alex Murdaugh, another judge, recuses herself from the case. A doctor found not guilty for killing her abusive husband. Bob Saget, the final report is out. Anna Delvey, going to get deported, but before she does that, she's going on a podcast. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. It is Tuesday, March 15th, 2022. Now, before we get to the docket, you know we've got some housekeeping to do. First, if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button. Hit that little bell so that you receive notifications of when we go live or put up new content. And as always, you can listen to us on any of your favorite podcasting apps simply by typing in Crime Talk. Now, tonight is Tuesday, so that means one thing. That's right. Crime Talk After Dark. It starts at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and that's 8 p.m. East Coast time. And then additionally, we will have our Patreon show immediately following that. All right, and before we get to today's show, let's hear a word from today's sponsor. Like many Americans, we got a dog during the pandemic. My quarantine dog, Miss Winnie the Bulldog. Now, Miss Winnie has grown accustomed to being around us all the time. When we were leaving the house, Winnie would have extreme anxiety, so we decided to look for natural products to help with her anxiety. We looked for the highest quality CBD treats, and we were not satisfied, and neither was Winnie. So we created a high-quality CBD product that absorbs faster and provides the required results faster. Baked in Colorado, CBD treats and beverage enhancers are made with nanotechnology. The nanotechnology makes the CBD extraction more pure, also allows for Baked in Colorado products to work faster. Baked in Colorado products can help reduce your pet's anxiety, ease joint pain, and help with your dog's skin problems. Go to our online store and see what Baked in Colorado product is best for your dog. When you order at bakedincolorado.com, enter code WINNIE and receive 15% off your first order. We have a 30-day money-back guarantee. If your dog does not experience the desired results in 30 days, return the product and we will refund your money. No questions asked. Now that we have all that housekeeping out of the way, let's open the docket. First, Chandler Halderson. Remember that guy? That's right. He was convicted of murdering and then dismembering his parents. Well, he doesn't want to go to his sentencing, which is coming up this Thursday. Now, Halderson is set to face his sentencing for killing his father, Bart, 50, and his mom, Krista, who was 53. Now, Halderson killed his parents after his father confirmed that he was not attending college, according to prosecutors, and he then chopped up his parents' bodies and hid them throughout Wisconsin. He hid his father's torso at his girlfriend's family property. From the torso, authorities were able to determine that Halderson shot his father in the back, but investigators have not been able to find parts of his mother's leg and cannot determine how he killed her. Sounds like a loving son, doesn't he? Well, the Dane County Deputy District Attorney, a guy by the name of William Brown, basically said in writings to the judge, the defendant has no right to simply skip a court hearing that might be uncomfortable or to avoid finally being held responsible for his behavior. Now, this defense, the pleadings by the prosecutor follows a motion filed by the defense attorney, Kathleen Dorrell, and she stated that Halderson signed an affidavit asking to skip the sentencing. Mr. Halderson consents to being absent from the sentencing hearing in this case, according to his attorney, and he waives any right to be present and not only requests, but requests to be absent. The attorney also argued that defendant's rights are not limitless And in this case, Mr. Halderson does not have a legitimate reason to skip court. Today, Judge Hyland has not yet ruled on the motion from Halderson's defense team. The judge says he will make a decision sometime this week before the sentencing hearing, which is scheduled for Thursday, March 17th at 1:30 p.m. Now, since he was convicted of first-degree intentional homicide, Halderson faces a mandatory life sentence, but could still be granted the possibility of parole. Okay, let's take a look at this a little closer. Now, Mr. Halderson, not a good guy. I mean, he was kind of a liar, lied about just about everything, killed both of his parents, chopped them up, strategically placing them throughout the state and various parts of residence. But that's not the point. The point is he's been found guilty by his peers, and that jury found unanimously that he was guilty of killing both his parents. Well, part of the process is sentencing, okay? That is a critical stage of the proceedings. Most courts will not let the defendant skip a critical stage of the proceedings unless they are somehow being disruptive. Could you imagine if every defendant didn't want to hear what was going on at trial, so they just didn't show up? Yeah, no, not going to happen. Now, I'm not the judge in this case. And just like anyone has a right to do something, they can waive that right by knowingly, voluntarily giving up that right. Then they knowingly, voluntarily give up their right for their statement of allocution. They always get the last word. But at sentencing, you also have the victims that get an opportunity to speak about how this has impacted their life in regards to his parents that have been killed at his hands. That's usually pretty powerful, and it's usually pretty good for the defendant to have to hear it. So what would I do if I was the judge? If I was the judge, I'd say, oh no, young man, you are showing up at your sentencing hearing. And I would then issue a drag order, which means that if Mr. Halderson, does not come voluntarily to court, that you have orders from the court to drag him to court and prop him up in that little chair. The man is looking at life without parole, but guess what? As soon as he gets to prison and realizes this isn't very much fun, what is he going to do? He's going to claim that he received ineffective assistance of counsel, and the court should have let him be at the sentencing hearing because no court would ever allow him to do that. The guy's playing games, okay? Now, Mr. Halderson, here's my advice if you were my client. Hey, it sucks that we lost, but let's face it, it was a difficult case. We did what we could. We made the government crawl over glass to get a conviction, but guess what? I'm going to advise you not to say anything at sentencing because there will be an appeal. But this is what I want you to say. When the judge asks if you have anything you want to say at the moment of your statement of allocution, you say, bring it on. That's the way it should be done. It's just the way it is. That's what I would tell him to do. Come on. Don't be a little wimp. I mean, you managed to kill two people and chop them up. You can certainly take a couple of hours at court for a sentencing hearing. Don't be a wimp. And there's lots of other things I'd call you, but come on. All right, next on the docket. So apparently the guy who said that he was the alleged stabber in the Museum of Modern Art in New York that was kind of on the run, but he was taunting police by his social media accounts. Well, apparently he wasn't in Central America like he said that he was. And guess what? He was actually in Pennsylvania. So that guy who allegedly stabbed two MoMA employees, the Museum of Modern Art, proudly proclaimed himself public enemy number one from inside a police cruiser while being arrested early Tuesday morning. Now, Gary Cabana, he's 60, and he was arrested at a Greyhound bus terminal in Philadelphia early Tuesday morning after he allegedly set fire to a downtown hotel room. Now, after his arrest, Mr. Cabana praised the officers who tracked him down, calling the NYPD and the Philadelphia police officers the best cops in the United States. Now, Mr. Cabana also urged the public to check his Instagram site. Now, a video of the arrest shows that Mr. Cabana was led out of the bus station in a flannel jacket and had a face mask on. Later, he is seen sweating profusely inside a cop car with a bandage on his forehead. Now, investigators in Philadelphia recognized Mr. Cabana from surveillance footage while they were investigating a fire on the 5th floor at a Best Western hotel. Police said that there was extensive damage to the room. He also reportedly booked himself into the room under the name Joseph Cabana. Last year, Mr. Cabana reportedly also turned violent on a former male boss and female union official after he was let go from his job as an usher at the Manhattan Netherland Theater. After being told his services were no longer needed, he sent a series of violent emails to a woman working at the union. Cabana showed up at the union office twice to look for her. The woman said she feared for her safety, and a criminal harassment complaint was in fact filed. He has also allegedly punched his former manager in the face while outside the Netherland Theater on West 41st Street. Now, Mr. Cabana allegedly stabbed two 24-year-old museum employees last Saturday after having his membership to the museum revoked. Mr. Cabana was then on the run since the stabbing, went on a social media spree, posting about a woman named Barbara whom he blamed for the entire incident. He was eventually found sleeping at the Greyhound bus terminal and was arrested. Now, Mr. Cabana, I know he thought that he was not going to be in custody for very long, that he would get a bond. Well, he's still in custody, and somehow I think they're going to make an exception for him so that he can't be released. And it may be a good idea for somebody to do a mental health evaluation on this guy. If he has this kind of anger issues and impulse control issues, he is a tinder keg waiting to blow up. So hopefully somebody does something to help Mr. Cabana real soon. And if they can't, then he's more than likely going to have to be locked up because I think he's becoming a danger to himself and to others. All right, another update. The homeless serial killer. Now this guy's got some real issues because he's going around killing people just to kill people. All right. So a man suspected of shooting 5 homeless men in Washington, D.C. and New York City was arrested early this morning following a multi-state manhunt. Gerald Brevard III is 30 years old and was found after tips were reported to police in D.C. and New York, including information on the suspect's name. Security video from a gas station shows agents with guns drawn confronting Brevard and ordering him to lie face down on the ground. The wanted man complies and is immediately surrounded, as you can see, by law enforcement officers who put him in handcuffs without incident. He is currently being interviewed at the homicide division. Additional information will obviously be forthcoming, but thanks to the community for all the tips, as apparently the police department said in a tweet. The suspect's father, Gerald Brevard, who's 54, said that he had spoken to his mild-mannered but mentally troubled son just hours before his arrest, and that the younger man did not say anything out of the ordinary. Gerald said that his son was dealing with mental illness for the longest time and was in and out of mental hospitals. Now, the suspect's aunt, Sheila Brevard, said Brevard III had been in and out of judicial systems, spent time in prison, and that the authorities were aware of his mental illness but had not properly treated it. And the New York police announced that the arrest is in the investigation is ongoing, and the investigator confirmed that the suspect didn't have a weapon on him when he was arrested, but was wearing clothes similar to those worn by a suspect who shot the victims in Manhattan on Sunday. So you're starting to notice a bit of a theme there, a little bit of mental illness and going around harming people. Not saying everybody with mental illness will do it. Heck, most of my clients over the years have had some sort of mental health issues, usually involving some sort of self-medication. But the reality of it is you got to get treated. You got to get the help that's being offered to you. Otherwise, you're not doing anybody any good at all. So people should not be troubled by having mental health illnesses. They should embrace it. And they should get the treatment and help that they need. I've seen so many people get the appropriate treatment and just live great lives. All right, Jussie Smollett. Are you tired of hearing about him just yet? Well, Jussie Smollett was sentenced to 150 days in custody as a condition of his felony probation. And I don't think that we are going to go a day without hearing about Jussie Smollett because he wants to go home. So, late Friday afternoon, lawyers for Jussie Smollett filed an emergency motion seeking Jussie Smollett's release from an Illinois jail. Now listen to these issues that they believe warrants an emergency release, because according to Mr. Smollett and his attorneys, Mr. Smollett is special. And Mr. Smollett's release is demanded because he is claiming that the actor is in danger and the target of online threat. Well, If they're online, at least they're not in the jail, so they can't get him. It sounds like he's safer in custody. His attorney said that Mr. Smollett's siblings have received racist, homophobic, and menacing calls since his phone number was listed at the jail as an emergency contact. Well, I would change that phone number. Additionally, if somebody is threatening you, Mr. Smollett's brother, you need to contact the police and they need to be prosecuted. Nobody's going to condone that conduct whatsoever. And if you have nothing nice to say, just don't say anything at all, right? Well, Mr. Smollett's legal team is asking the county to pause his 150-day sentence and grant him a bond. One man in particular apparently has called more than a dozen times saying, I hope what they do to that guy in jail, here's what they're going to do. They're going to take a broom handle and take that little blank, shove it in there, and he's going to make a shrieking sound, apparently. Now, the unidentified caller was apparently referencing the 1997 attack of Abner Louima in New York City. Mr. Smollett apparently is in protective custody at the request of his lawyers, and officials said the actor's cell is being monitored 24/7. That's good, so that he cannot hurt himself. And unless he has something on the Clintons, I think he's probably okay. I don't think he has a worry of being suicided. Mr. Smollett's lawyers have also claimed that protective custody is just as bad as solitary confinement, which would cause extraordinary damage on his mental health. You're right. If Mr. Smollett is in danger of extreme mental health from being in protective custody, which is kind of like solitary confinement, because you're saying, I'm scared, people are going to hurt me, you should just ask to go to general population. I think Mr. Smollett will be okay. Listen, there's never a good time to go to jail, okay? For anyone, let alone Mr. Smollett, who is the court described as a narcissist and thinks that everything is about him. But he's going to make it through it. He's going to be okay, and he's going to be a better person on the other side. And then obviously the court has also been made aware that Mr. Smollett has a compromised immune system and that possible exposure to COVID poses a serious threat. The appellate court has given the prosecutors 5 days to respond to Mr. Smollett's emergency motion, and Mr. Smollett's attorneys have also filed an appeal regarding his conviction. Listen, nobody likes to go to jail, but sometimes you just got to go do it. You got convicted, there's consequences to it. I don't know if Mr. Smollett still has the means to take care of all these matters or have people take care of his matters when he goes inside. But listen, some people, when they go into custody, even for 150 days or less, lose everything. Those are the consequences to it. So although I am empathetic to Mr. Smollett's situation, I don't think that his sentence was out of the ordinary or inappropriate in any way. Alex Murdaugh, more judges are resigning. Judge Michelle Childs recused herself yesterday in Mr. Alex Murdaugh's jailhouse phone call case. Last Friday, Alex Murdaugh's attorneys made a surprise move asking for the judge to recuse herself after discovering the potential conflict of interest. As we previously noted, the conflict of interest were that Judge Childs' connection to NP Strategy, the public relation company that helped Alex Murdaugh after his wife and son were murdered, is also the firm that helped Childs in her bid to become the next Supreme Court nominee. That's right, United States Supreme Court nominee. Apparently didn't work. Apparently didn't work for Mr. Murdaugh either. So anyway, NP Strategy is owned by the law firm of Nexon Pruitt, which used to employ Judge Childs. And NP Strategy, Murdaugh, Childs, and Harpootlian are all members of the South Carolina Democrat political circle. Childs' campaign for the Supreme Court nomination was funded, at least in large part, by the South Carolina Association of Justice, who in 2016, guess who was their president? Alex Murdaugh. The case will be reassigned to Judge Cameron McGowan Curie, who is the fifth judge assigned to the federal case in less than 2 weeks. Now, Childs became the fourth judge assigned to the case on the complaint that was filed on February 28th, seeking to stop any further release of the publication of his recorded phone calls. Childs issued an order acknowledging that some might see the connection and asked if anyone feared a conflict of interest to request a recusal by Friday. Childs also brought up another potential conflict of her own. A current law clerk was employed in the office of plaintiff's counsel Richard Harpootlian, before starting his judicial clerkship. In contrast, Mr. Murdaugh's attorneys argued on Friday that Child's tangential and irrelevant connection with plaintiff and his counsel will be betrayed in a manner creating an appearance of impropriety even in the eyes of a reasonable member of the public, thereby eroding the confidence in the judicial integrity. That's what happens when everybody is scratching everybody's backs in the good old boy network, so to speak. It looks bad when one of them gets in trouble because it can't look like they're getting any favoritism along the way. Here's an interesting case for you. A doctor was found not guilty after killing her abusive husband. That's right. A doctor in Nebraska who fatally shot her husband in front of her 2 children will not have to serve any time in prison after a jury found that she acted in self-defense. Now, Dr. Kathleen Jordan, the 33-year-old mother, was found not guilty on 1 count of second-degree murder and 1 count of using a deadly weapon to commit a felony in the death of 35-year-old Joshua Jordan. The shooting took place when Kathleen, her husband, and their 2 sons were driving on Interstate 80 back on June 7th of 2020 on their way to Scottsbluff, where the family was moving so that Kathleen could continue her medical residency. Kathleen and Joshua were reportedly arguing when Joshua pulled the vehicle to the side of the freeway, called a friend to help mediate the conversation. During the call, Joshua reportedly turned towards Kathleen with his arms raised like he was going to strike her and gave her a look. She claimed to recognize that look from previous instances of physical abuse. Kathleen then grabbed a handgun from the center console of the pickup truck and fired 2 fatal shots into Joshua's chest. Now, the Dawson County attorney, Liz Waterman, argued to the jury that the evidence pointed to Kathleen acting out of rage and not fear when she killed Joshua, noting that she told a responding officer that she just wanted out of the relationship. Now, in her testimony at trial, Kathleen reportedly provided a detailed accounting of the alleged abuse that she had suffered at the hands of her husband for 9 years. Kathleen specifically emphasized an August 2015 incident in Grenada during which Joshua allegedly held her down on the floor and poured alcohol down her throat. He then allegedly urinated on Kathleen before dumping baby powder on her face and strangling her as punishment because she refused his order to get undressed. She said his demeanor before the shooting was the same as when he'd previously harmed her. She reportedly said that Joshua forced her to cut off communications with her family and friends, demanding the passwords to all of her electronic devices, used GPS to track her movements, and demanded that she gratify him sexually as a form of punishment. Now, prior to moving, Joshua reportedly threatened to stay in Washington State with their 2 children unless Kathleen signed a contract promising to give him 30% of her income while she was in medical school and 50% of her income thereafter. Now, Kathleen reportedly said on the witness stand it was fear of losing her children that also kept her from reporting the previous instances of alleged abuse. Now, according to the report, a jury comprised of 10 women and 2 men Friday returned a verdict of not guilty against the physician after deliberating just under 5 hours. See, take it to the jury, ladies and gentlemen. The jury usually gets it right. This guy, according now, obviously he's not here to defend himself, but he doesn't sound like a very nice guy. And guess what? The jury believed the good doctor. All right, Bob Saget. Well, the law enforcement has released some documents that revealed that Bob Saget's cause of death and investigation are able to rule out foul play. The document states that Bob Saget arrived at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Orlando just after 2 a.m. on January 9th, and he was apparently just fine. Bob drove up to the valet as he approached the entrance, and the valet, a gentleman by the name of Orlando Nunez, asked for a selfie, and Bob obliged. Now, Mr. Nunez says Bob seemed fine and there was no evidence of slurred speech, balance issues, or anything else that might sound alarm bells. The document then states that Bob was observed on security video walking purposely across the lobby towards the elevators without stopping or interacting with anyone. Then Bob walked into his room alone. Once inside the room, the door was never unlocked or opened until security came later that day and discovered his body. Now, the chief medical examiner went into pretty good detail about the head hitting the headboard theory. The medical examiner says the force necessary to cause the fracture, coupled with the fact the skin on the back of his head was still intact, led him to believe the injury was most likely caused by something hard yet covered by something soft. Police have been able to rule out what may have caused the fatal injury. That includes countertops, tables, nightstands, and other hard furniture with sharp edges that would have left a mark. Now, the headboard was lightly padded and set off slightly from the wall, leading the medical examiner to theorize that is what made contact with Bob Saget's head and ultimately resulted in his death. I don't know. I've seen several padded headboards over my day, but I guess if you hit it just right, anything's possible. Let me know in the comments what you think. All right, next, Anna Delvey. If you have not watched Inventing Anna on Netflix, you absolutely should. It is very interesting on how she was able to scam people. It's worth the watch. It really is. So Anna Delvey, also known as Anna Sorkin, has been released from an upstate New York detention center and is being deported from the United States after nearly a year in ICE custody. She has been at the Orange County Correctional Facility in Goshen, New York since March 25th for allegedly overstaying her visa. Now, Miss Sorkin, who's now 31, is said to be furious about the deportation. I can imagine she's probably yelling at the guards, "You're so poor. That's why you're deporting me." She had put in an appeal to remain in the U.S., and the appeal was meant to be heard on April 19th. Now, Sorkin's crimes have been glamorized in the Netflix hit show Inventing Anna, and Anna is reportedly going to the Call Her Daddy podcast tomorrow. Sorkin came to New York City in 2013 to set up a high-end members-only arts club, but things kind of spiraled out of control. She claimed to be an heiress of some at least $60 million and changed her name to Anna Delvey, when in reality she was born Anna Sorkin in a working-class town in Russia. Her father's a truck driver, and her mother owns a small convenience store. She ended up swindling new friends in various businesses, including some of New York City's top hotels, out of some $275,000 during a 10-month free crime spree, I guess you could say. Now, a Manhattan jury convicted her of 1 count of attempted grand larceny, 3 counts of grand larceny, and 4 counts of theft of services. She spent nearly 4 years in prison before being released on good behavior back in February of 2021. I'm telling you, it's a pretty good show. It's interesting. How's the nice lady, the actress from Ozarks? It's worth it. It's really good watching. I'm telling you. All right. Next on the docket, our dumb criminal of the day. Now, according to police, it is alleged that Renee Bolduc was inside her residence at the mobile home park in St. Petersburg, Florida, when Nicole Hosmer walked past the property. Bolduc, cops allege, exited her home and stood on the porch where she took a water gun and squirted the victim in the face. Bolduc allegedly squirted Hosmer in the face because she was upset the victim was walking on her street. Hosmer was not injured in the water shooting. As you can see, Bolduc was arrested for misdemeanor battery and booked into the county jail, from which she was released late Saturday after posting a $500 bond. The water pistol was not seized. I'm sure they will seize it later. It's a deadly weapon under some people's eyes. Her street. Wow. That's why you are our dumb criminal of the day, Ms. Bolduc. It's not your street. It's the mobile home park street or the city street, but it's not your street, and anybody can walk down it. That's why you are the dumb criminal. All right, thanks for watching. Please join us tonight, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, for our After Dark live program that we'll do, and then we'll do our follow-on show, which is our Patreon show, so please join us. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Hope to see you all tonight.